Sounds good.
Okay, so we're going to go through a process called the EXAMENS, and it's all about how to enable change by increasing self-awareness, which leads to better self-regulation. So it's all about better understanding the patterns that are driving our lives and creating the unwanted emotions we have on a regular basis. It's all about identifying self-limiting patterns so we can choose better alternatives. And it's all about quickening our evolution by analyzing our experiences and developing our best qualities. So throughout history, this habit of impartial self-examination is considered one of the most essential habits to successfully live a human life. It's been recommended in great wisdom books like the Bhagavad Gita, spiritual writers like St. Ignatius of Loyola, Paramahansa Yogananda, Seneca, Marcus Aurelius, Gandhi, and many others have all suggested that we do this. Okay, and basically it's just have a template for taking inventory and examining yourself. They suggest you make a daily habit of reviewing your progress, staying on track, and taking corrective action when needed. The truth is that most people don't change because they aren't truly self-aware. Most of what we do is the result of unexamined routine, unexamined motives, unexamined thought habits and triggers and reactions and behaviors. But one secret to progress lies in self-analysis, to be able to find your failures and assess your good and bad tendencies and decide on what you want to become and what shortcomings are holding you back, right? Because if you live blindly, it will hold you captive through blind habit and repetition. And even modern writers like Tony Robbins said, clarity is power. The reason most people don't succeed is because they don't self-assess. So even Tony Robbins is saying this stuff. So here's the thing. Our everyday mental habits basically control our lives, our everyday mental habits. And we have about 60,000 thoughts a day, and about 95% of them are the same thoughts as the day before. So
that's kind of sad.
Yeah, but there's great power in changing those things, right? And nobody else, your mental habits are like your traveling companions in your life journey, the thoughts that you repeat, but nobody else is totally sure who you're traveling with, because some of these thoughts betray us. Many of these unexamined thoughts promise happiness, but ultimately bring misery. For example, like selfish thinking can lead to loneliness, right? Envying other people, which we might believe is going to motivate us to be successful, it can lead to like bitterness and hatred, you know? So our thoughts and motivations are only truly known by us. So that's why it's more important to become a ruler of your own mental kingdom. It's up to you to make sure your thought habits are trustworthy, loyal companions for your life journey, right? And some thoughts lead to other thoughts. They're like gateway thoughts. For example, a desire for power. Like, let's say you have a desire for power and you're like, that's good. We need to having more power. It's a strong thing. It's a, it may seem innocent enough. It may energize you and feel good, but a desire for power leads to suspicion of other people. It leads to indifference to those beneath you. We develop less compassion for those who have less. It leads to anger towards those who go against your will. It leads to fear of loss. And it leads to other mental realities that plunge you into a mental hell. And then people may use alcohol, drugs, gambling, and other distractions to free themselves from their mind and all these unwanted thoughts and emotions, such as the power of one unchecked thought, the desire for power. It's like it just leads to this thought flow like a river and just takes us to a dark place, right? So if we don't pay attention, we can commit to the path of error. And this is all about how to go to battle with that darkness inside. So why do we care? What bad things could happen if we don't practice self-examination? What do you think?
I would say like mindlessness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just not being like connected or grounded in like what you're doing and what you truly want and how those connect.
Yeah. It's almost like how far you go in life can be determined not by how hard you work, but how well you think, right? And if you're just in a mental straitjacket because you're not assessing and improving your thought habits, then that can be limited. So I have 3 analogies from Yogananda
Cool.
related to this, and I want you to pick your favorite.
Okay.
He comes up with like
Perfect.
3 analogies here. So he said this. Number 1 is the donkey analogy. He said, some people behave like donkeys. They act on instinct like an animal. No matter how much they have suffered the consequences, they stubbornly go on nourishing their bad habits. They quickly forget the painful results and never learn from their experiences. So that's the donkey habit. Okay. Now the next one is puppet. So he also said that people can be like a puppet. The strings of their habits and emotions and passions and senses make them dance to their bidding, right? They're just like a puppet on strings. They bind the soul. Right? And the third analogy is robots.
Yeah.
He said, millions of people never analyze themselves. Mentally, they are mechanical products of the factory of their environment, preoccupied with breakfast, lunch, and dinner, working and sleeping and going here and there to be entertained. They don't know what or why they are seeking, nor why they never realize complete happiness and lasting satisfaction. By evading self-analysis, people go on being robots, conditioned by their environment. True self-analysis is the greatest art of progress. Right? So what do you like better, the donkey, puppet, or robot analogy?
I kind of like the puppet.
Yeah.
I like the puppet.
Anthony DeMello in the book Awareness used the puppet analogy as well. And I thought he did it really well. He said, the events of your life will control you rather than you controlling them. Your triggers are kind of like the puppet strings, like you're jerked this way and that unconsciously, you react to life circumstances. He's like, if you want to be a puppet, press a button and you're down. How do you like that? You're right. Like he's kind of like, he went into this really awesome analogy about it.
That's so cool.
I like the donkey one. I think the stubborn donkey that just kind of nourishing their bad habits. They forget the consequences. They never learn from it. Like, I like that one. But ultimately, one of the main risks is that if you don't do self-analysis, you can mindlessly become a tool for evil. This is what happens typically, is that you blindly cooperate with the forces of evil and fall again and again into the same traps, perpetuating problems and pain in life. So you will pass on your pain to other people. You will, evil forces hypnotize you to act on whims, impulses, and habits in negative ways, bending the truth and lying, discrediting other people, spreading negativity and harsh judgment, and doing wrong things and justifying it, and all these types of things, right? So
I can see that for sure.
People just become a puppet for evil when they don't analyze their lives, right? They're no longer in control of their lives, right? So what are some of the good things that can happen if we have a disciplined habit of self-examination? Why is it a must? What do you think are some of the benefits? Why should we do this?
I would say, well, the benefit is I feel like the outcome would be better just by having a little bit more awareness on what your typical thought pattern is and what the outcome is. Because usually it's not always the greatest one when you're acting on impulse or reactivity, like, right? So just going about that, or having like that awareness and actually examining those things, or having something to go back on can help you kind of navigate maybe a better approach.
Love it. So yeah, you said greater self-awareness. You become better at monitoring and understanding your feelings and intentions and the impact it has on others, right? And that leads to greater self-regulation. So better ability to control your emotional impulses and behavioral urges that are inappropriate or harmful, right?
Right.
So basically you're training yourself to behave. Your behavior will improve, and your behavior will improve if you have to judge yourself every day,
right,
and assess your behavior. You have to come
like
before
a
your
report
own
card.
your own inner tribunal. Like you're going to be like, I'm going to learn to behave, or I'm going to have to answer to myself later on today. Right. But basically you break the hypnosis of social conditioning, social programming, and conditioned responses to life. No longer accepting the first thoughts that show up in your mind without checking them. Right. So aiming for self-mastery in our thoughts, and which can lead to a better life, better self, helping others more, and just overall fulfillment with everything. Right. So
True.
the secret to this is keeping a mental diary each night to assess your daily battles, to build resistance against some of those dark side tendencies and their blind impulses, while kind of supporting your discerning wisdom. So Blue Jay just
Good morning to you
chirped
too.
right in my ear. Okay. So watch everything in and around you as far as possible as if it's happening to someone else. So, and you can discern the good or bad, what's won the daily battle. And then you just keep practicing it over and over again. And you learn it just like anything else. It becomes a natural part of your character. So there's a couple steps to this that I kind of think are good form when you're doing a daily self-examination. So it's something to be done every night.
Yeah.
And the biggest risk here is that people will justify excuses to not do it every night. So they break the rituals. So it's like, unless you're going to be 100% committed, don't even try, because you're already setting yourself up for failure, right? Like you have to realize that this is probably like the most important work in your life you can do, according to all of these wisdom masters through all the ages and even the modern thinkers. This is one of the most important things you can do to better your life. If you want a better life, like you need to just commit to it 10 out of 10 before you even start. Otherwise, have fun being a donkey puppet or whatever it is, right? Like maybe maybe you need to suffer the consequences longer, right? Until you're ready for change. And that's what happens. A lot of times people have to hit rock bottom before they're ready for change to commit to it. So, and one of the reasons too is that people become proud of their successes and they're just like, oh, look how far I've come already. I don't need to do this. That's the ego tricking us into accepting a lower standard, right? It could be great. Look how far you've come, but also think about how far you can still go, right? Like that's where our thoughts should progress next. So anyway, we just want to make sure that we don't have a resistance to this right away.
100%.
So step one is like really just to sit there, make yourself as calm and peaceful as you can. Just focus on maximizing your state of peace, which is really good training for your body. You could burn incense, you could do meditation or prayer or something like that if you want, but just get into a peaceful state. And then just think, what did I like about today?
Okay. I'm writing these down.
Okay, no problem. What did I like about today?
Right on my phone.
Okay. Because that is gratitude. And that'll give you a healing dose of immunity against bad moods, jealousy, envy, anger, and all kinds of challenging emotions. So we recall all of the good things that happened. It could be the support and help of others, relationships, experiences we had, modern day conveniences we enjoyed, favorite foods, talents we got to utilize, ideas we had. Like we are legitimizing the gifts by being grateful for them. What's the point in being blessed with more if you don't appreciate the blessings you've already received, right? So we just want to take inventory on the good stuff, So it's like, what made you smile? What's working out well in your life right now, right? So then that's step one. And then step two would be to replay your day like a movie. So play out the events in your head, like waking up. What were you thinking about in the shower or brushing your teeth? And replay the sights, the sounds, the sensations, the conversations, recall everything, thoughts, words, actions, everything, and then you could just think about, what did I test out or experiment with today? What did I learn from it? Okay, well, normally there's this person who has a really challenging personality. Today, I didn't talk back to them or anything. I just said thank you. And then all of a sudden they smiled and they were nice and they left, right? Or, whatever else you're experimenting with, right? When was I at my best? Where did I overcome my weaknesses? Where did I progress? Reflect on the victories that help you build up your new sense of self, right? Progress, Tony Robbins said that progress equals happiness. So recognize your progress before bed. That's going to help you train your own happiness, which is everyone's goal really deep down if they're completely honest with themselves, right? Like,
Yeah.
did I make others happy today? That's something we might want to think about, because it's really helpful to find our happiness in the happiness of other people. It's a greater happiness compared to selfish happiness. As Yogananda said, to live for self is the source of all misery. Which is basically like selfish happiness as a goal is the source of all misery, right? It leads to a lot of disharmony in life.
See that for sure.
You might ask yourself other questions that relate to your values. You might say, did I love everybody today? Did I accept or turn away from any invitations to grow in my own love? You might think in your moments of indecision to ask yourself, what would love do now, right? Another thing you can do, as a result of doing the knowing handout or divine hide and seek, is you could say, where did I see the hidden hand of the supreme intelligence today, or the creator? Where did I see the love and support of the universe show up in my day? Right? That gives us more positive faith, which is an answer to fear and worry, is to just keep building positive faith that we live in an existence of divine order, but you have to pay attention to it for it to become part of your reality. What you don't pay attention to doesn't exist in your reality. So we have to pay attention to, where is the hidden support, the trust and love of the universe, right? So that's kind of like step 2, playing it out like a movie, right? Step 3 is kind of like seeing opportunities for improvement. All right. So, we could morally evaluate our thoughts, our feelings, and our motives from throughout the day and say, is all this in keeping with the person I am trying to become? What values do I want to represent? What do I want to stand for? Everything you do is a vote for the person you want to become, a hero or a villain, right?
Right.
So some basic questions you can ask are this: were my thoughts right? Were my moods right? Were my actions right? Were my thoughts right? Were my moods right? Were my actions right? Just those 3 you can ask yourself daily if you want to keep it really simple. And people can keep this as simple or complex as they want. Now, one of the things that I've had to do when coaching people through this, that we'll do right now, is sometimes they experience troubling emotions, suffering emotions, but then they don't really know what to do with it. Okay. So I said, the one thing, because they're getting messages, modern people in psychology are saying, you need to honor all these negative emotions and you need to stick with them. Don't try to get out of them. And what that's done is that's got a lot of people stuck in them. I'm like, you only need to stick with them long enough to recognize what it is and what it's telling you. Then move on. Don't keep indulging in it. I get this a lot with people I've coached that have kind of got screwed up because they're listening to people that are like, no, you don't need to make anger the enemy and depression the enemy. Stick with it. And so they're sticking with it and they're stuck. They're like, I don't know. I'm just going.
They're like literally sticking with it. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, that's actually making things worse. It's like, so they're asking me, like, they're like, no, I'm told I'm supposed to stay with these negative emotions. And I'm like, only until you get the learning lesson from it and get the heck out of there, So I'm like, what are you, a glutton for punishment? Like, yeah, but this is what so-and-so told me. I'm like, that doesn't mean it's the truth. Like, you should question the results you're getting to know what's true. The truth will set you free, So here's what we'll do. We're going to go through like the 10 basic,
I see
like,
the sun.
suffering.
Beautiful.
Oh yeah. Right there. The sun.
Gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. Wow. Nice.
Yeah. So we'll go through like the negative emotion check-ins and what each emotion is really telling you to do. Okay. So let's just do this once and for all, so we've got it down. Okay.
Sounds good.
So the first one could be a sense of like boredom or impatience or just distress. Okay. Like it's kind of like if you're experiencing boredom, impatience, or distress, it's just kind of sending the message that something's not quite right. Okay. Now, what is not quite right is either your perception is off, the way you're looking at things isn't quite right, or the actions you're taking are not producing the results you want. It's one of the two. So I'd say, what is it? Is it your judgments, or is it you're not getting a good return on investment for your actions? And then let's take action on that. So you don't have to stick with these emotions any longer. Right?
Right.
So that's number one. Number two is fear. Okay. Fear.
Knew that was coming.
Yeah, of course. So here's the way we want to look at fear. It's the anticipation that something's going to happen that needs to be prepared for. Great. What preparation do we need to take? That's it. That's what fear is doing. That's when fear's healthy fear, right? Rather than an overindulgence in fear to try to motivate us, but it's just saying something needs to be prepared for. Perfect. Now the third one, anger. So you could be like, did I experience anger today? Well, anger is really saying that an important rule to you or an important life rule has been violated by you or somebody else. Right? That's it. This is an important life rule. You know, maybe they don't know your rule. Maybe your rules aren't necessarily right, even though you feel strongly about them. You know, you could ask yourself, does this person really care about me? Like, what can I learn from this? How can I communicate the importance of these rules, like that I have, in a way that causes them to want to help out and not violate this standard in future, right? Like, so that's some of the different approaches we could take on this. Right? You know, like you might share something in confidence with somebody. You might say, hey, I have some concerns about somebody. You know, their thoughts and moods just aren't right. They're not cooperative. They're kind of they've got the wrong motives. But then they might run off and tell that person. Right. And then you might be angry, like, what the heck? Like I was telling you so we could come up with a positive solution together to help this person. And now I have become the target of their wrath. Right. Like,
yeah.
But we could also say that, you know, what we can learn is you could just be able to manage those expectations better and just say, when you have a conversation, hey, this is private. Please promise me you won't share this with anybody. It's really important. Okay, here's some things we need to address. Right. So
right.
That might be an example of the application of this. Okay. So the next one is hurt. Okay. So we might feel hurt, and hurt is usually generated by some sort of a sense of loss. Okay. That we have some sort of an expectation that has not been met. But it might just be, we might just have a false perception about loss. You know, we need to ask ourselves, is there really loss here? Or am I judging things too soon or too harshly? Because that can often be the case. You know, we just have to realize that we've not lost anything. How do we still have what we believe we've lost, just in other ways, right? So another emotion is frustration. So frustration just means you think you could be doing better than you are. It's different than disappointment. Disappointment means there's something you want, but you'll probably never get it, right? Like, well, frustration's positive because it means it's within reach, right? And what you're currently doing isn't working, but you can change your approach to achieve that goal. So just brainstorm new ways to get a goal, right? How can you be flexible and adaptable with your approach and get some input on how to deal with it? Maybe find a role model that can help you get what you want, right? So that's frustration.
Okay.
So then the sixth one would be disappointment. Disappointment says that an expectation we had is probably not going to happen. This means we need to change our expectations, right?
Okay.
And have some new expectations. We also could learn how to better read and anticipate things, because our expectations were not accurate with how reality unfolded. Oftentimes because we make our preferences our expectations because it would be convenient for us. So it's our own way of, because we'd prefer things to go a certain way, we make that our expectation. But life humbles us time and time again on that, that's not always realistic. Yeah. So then the next one is guilt. That's the next emotion. That's just telling you that you broke one of your own rules and you have to do something immediately to make sure you're not going to do it again. Like, turn guilt into action. That's what it is. Some people just try to deny their guilt and suppress it, and they experience mental anguish, right? It doesn't go away. It only comes back stronger. Some people will feel inferior for the rest of their lives because of a guilt. That's not what guilt is there to do, right? Guilt is to get your attention in a way that is going to compel you to be consistent with your highest personal standards, right? So now the next suffering emotion would be inadequacy. This is a very common one. People feel inadequate. They feel they don't believe in themselves. They struggle with self-worth and self-acceptance and everything else. And usually it's because they have a completely unfair rule for determining whether or not they're adequate. So that goes back to the self-acceptance talk. It'd be like, let's check out our rule on self-acceptance. What has to happen in order for me to accept myself? Fill in the blank. Usually it's some sort of completely unfair, disempowering rule that people have, right? So we need to change our rules on self-acceptance. The other thing is that the inadequacy could be a message that you need more information, more understanding, more tools, more strategies, or more confidence and experience, right? So it's just an action sign. Just, hey, you're inadequate right now. Like, you just need to take action on building up your adequacy for whatever you're going to do. It can help to, once again, have a coach or a role model. You might be untrained or unskilled in a particular area, but that doesn't actually mean you're inadequate. I think the key message here is that the capability for greatness is within you even now, because you have the potential to learn and grow and improve. So it's just reminding ourselves that we have the capability for greatness within us. What do we need to do next? Right? So now the next one is loneliness. So loneliness, okay? And that just means you need a connection with people. And we just want to figure out what kind of connection that is, right? Is it just a friend to talk to? Is it somebody to, a romantic connection? Is it like, what kind of connection is it that people are looking for, right? So getting clear on that. And then realizing that the solution to loneliness is to realize that you can reach out and make a connection immediately and end the loneliness anytime in life. Reach out to somebody. Hey, just reaching out to see what you're up to. Want to catch up sometime? No, you're busy at the moment. Okay, fine. Call somebody else. Or just do it. You could just be like, hey, let me take you out, buy you a coffee and get caught up. Let's go for a walk. Let's go for a nature hike. Like, if you go through your list of contacts, you will find somebody. That's the truth.
It's true. Right? It's true.
And sometimes I remember talking to some of my clients. I remember I was talking to this one woman and she's like, I'm kind of experiencing loneliness. And I said, look, within a 50-mile radius, there are hundreds of men that will date you right now. And it. They will buy you flowers. They will buy you dinner. And this for a fact. Do not give me this excuse, right? It is you have not applied the effort, or you're making excuses for not making the effort to go out there and find that connection, right? She's like, I hate when you're right, but it's true. It's like, yeah, don't tell me there's nobody out there. Like, for anybody within a 50-mile radius, you could find that, for a fact, there's going to be tons of people that would be interested, right? But I
like,
think,
damn it, you're making me do more work.
yeah. Yeah. So I think really the key thing is what's good about being lonely is it means you really care about people and you love being with them. Awesome. Perfect. That's healthy.
Yeah.
If you're lonely, it means you're healthy. Good.
Good. You want connection.
And you can reach out anytime and connect with people. Anytime. You can go on social media and connect with people and Facebook groups and TikTok. Just message,
I
insert
know.
yourself into conversations and everything. You can break loneliness like that in today's day and age, right?
It's true.
So then we also have, and the final category would be kind of like helplessness, depression, grief. Like often these emotions are just a matter of feeling overloaded or overwhelmed. But really, it's because we don't feel there's an empowering meaning for something that's happening or something we're going through. That our life is being negatively impacted by people, events, or forces that are outside our control. So the key to that is to focus on what you can control. The key to that is focus on the positive forces in your life. The key to that is to focus on everything that's good about the situation, how it can lead to new opportunities and new growth and everything else. Like, just think about what's good, what can be learned, how can I make it better, right? That just has to do with a processing. We just haven't been processing this adversity in a way that brings strength, right? We might be processing the adversity in a way that brings further weakness, you know? So that just has to do with good form in thinking. Grief is a little bit different because, and that's a subject altogether we'll chat about a little bit more. So I'd put a little asterisk beside the grief and just say, let's put that one in the parking lot because there's more we can say about that.
Okay.
But those would be the 10 suffering emotions. And we want to just see like, hey, what am I really feeling right now? What is the message of that feeling? Because then we can take proper action rather than just suffering with it in an endless cycle, which a lot of people do. Like we don't want to be that puppet on a string that's just getting yanked this way and that by this suffering emotion, but we're never getting the lesson and we're never doing things properly, right? We're this stubborn donkey that keeps nourishing and defending the bad thoughts and behavior. So, there's a whole bunch of different challenges we might have, and it could be vices and virtues could be a different aspect of this as well. If we're assessing ourselves, did I indulge in faith or doubt? Did I indulge in selfishness or generosity? Did I indulge in humility or pride and egotism? Did I indulge in action or laziness, honesty or dishonesty, good moods or bad moods, compassion or judgment, forgiveness, resentment, spiritual desires versus material desires, soul identity versus body identity. Like there's so many different things and it's all relevant to you and wherever you're at. So it's like, if every human being is going to learn like one or two major lessons in a lifetime, then what are kind of those major lessons that we need to have on the radar, right? So I would keep it, I would have sort of like a personal check-in, like which vice am I trying to overcome at this time, and be glad when you find these faults because they've been there the whole time. Now you can do something about it. Awareness itself can have a curative effect, right? Refinement is possible in time. So yeah, we just want to focus on the battles that are most relevant to us. Like there could be very specific mental opponents that attack us in life. And if we don't understand them, then we are their puppets, right?
Right.
If we don't understand some of these emotions. So the other thing I would say is like, these are some of the questions we would be asking ourselves at night. But then we'd also want to check in on ourselves during the day. Okay. Watch your thoughts, watch your actions, watch your motives, catch your triggers, evaluate your responses, know what's going on in your head and question it. You have to be your own psychologist, right? You really do. Everybody has to be their own psychologist. You have to decide how you're going to show up and give the most value. You know, and people are going to dip on this. You're going to have times when you fall, but it's all about getting back to your higher place on this, you know, to be able to build that stronger momentum over time. Like, this is how you develop self-awareness. And then ultimately what it leads to is greater reflection before you act, right? We can recognize when troublesome thoughts show up and break the pattern with correctives of perspectives.
Good
right?
one.
So stop and think before you act and speak, choose a better response, and then act accordingly.
I think like the most important thing, even like just like even the word, it's just unexamined. I think sometimes like, especially now, a lot of people are busybodied and we don't actually stop and reflect. So I can see why like stopping and reflecting even would bring more awareness in your day to day, because you know you're going back to that after and you're accountable to that.
Mm-hmm.
So you're giving yourself the opportunity to kind of like refine and not judge, but evaluate maybe where you potentially went wrong or where you can go, like what direction you can go to be better. So I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of this conversation is inspired by Saint Ignatius came up with this concept of the examens. And I studied his stuff to see how he was going about doing it. A lot of it comes from Paramahansa Yogananda, who said that we should do this, and he referenced Saint Ignatius. And then a lot of the negative emotion stuff comes from Tony Robbins, applications of stuff he said. Right. So this today is kind of like a mix of wisdom, and then there's a whole bunch of stuff I've innovated and thrown in, but I have to pay tribute to those three who have played a large role in today's conversation. And then I think the other thing is this. The other thing is most people underestimate, they underestimate the effort needed to overcome their weaknesses, and they just perpetuate pain and problems. But it's like, but getting over our pain and problems, it's always just a matter of motivation, you know, like, because if somebody held a gun to your head and said, don't do that, or I'm going to pull the trigger, like, you wouldn't do it. It's just motivation. Right. So we need to stay motivated to overcome our human shortcomings. And a lot of times getting help is the best thing to do. Find a role model, a wise and worthy mentor or teacher. You know, take note of sort of the strategies and tools that they can provide with you. Really take in their perspective, because they can help you just accelerate progress so much faster. It's really, if you don't have outside help, then you're really in the slow lane, no matter how fast you think you're going. Because we all have unconscious incompetence, and there's others who have been down this journey before, and they can show you all the shortcuts that you can't even see, right?
Right.
So this is all about, I mean, this whole conversation is all about creating your life. Rather than letting your life be something that happens to you, we have to just use psychology on ourselves, watch our thoughts, assess our thoughts, choose better thoughts, capture the things that trigger you, train yourself to behave. Most human beings don't train themselves to behave, and you can see it all the time. It's like, you know, like
funny,
isn't that really
but
like
it's
one of
true.
the big problems in the world is that people haven't trained themselves to behave, and they just go out there and just live and just they just vomit all of their thoughts out there, their negative thoughts and opinions and everything, and they do all these kinds of things anyway.
Yeah.
Marcus Aurelius once said that the happiness of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts. Therefore, guard accordingly. Okay. Self-awareness is the first step in your journey to success. Just understanding those natural behavioral patterns so that you can overcome them and decipher what's going on. And then Yogananda had a really good quote that I like that kind of sums this up. He says, practice the art of living in this world without losing your inner peace of mind. Like, that sounds like such a good idea. Like, if you don't have inner peace of mind, what kind of practice out there in the world is really worth anything if we don't have inner peace of mind? And he said, if you know that you are progressing spiritually, mentally, physically every day, you can be happy. right? Progress
Yeah.
leads to happiness. So this is all about how we can be very strategic and very practical and have a step-by-step method to be more mindful about how we're living our life so that we can do a better job of training ourselves to to behave, I guess we could say, so we can break those puppet strings.
100%.
All right, what are some of your key takeaways from the discussion?
I would say, well, I definitely think that the checklist would be one of the best things that I can implement, especially right now. Like just daily and having that self-reflection tool, because um I think that'll help me navigate where my thoughts are going, where my energy is being expended, and who I want to show up as. So I would say that's one of like the better takeaways that I have. Um, and I'm going to start using.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. And I know that we went into a lot of detail on this, but we
Yeah.
can really make it simple. If you're just to write down a few things, it could be this. What did I like about my day? Number one. Number two was like, were my thoughts right? Were my moods right? Were my actions right? Is all this in keeping with who I'm trying to become? And then you might have like, what do I want to try tomorrow?
Yeah.
Like it could just be that simple. It could just be a matter of just playing it out, making sure we're not unnecessarily repeating the same mistakes and creating non-essential suffering for ourselves. But also when we create suffering for ourselves, we create suffering for those around us.
Right.
Because when you suffer, other people who care about you suffer. So it really is an act of love to the people we care about to be able to take this seriously and be able to try to better manage ourselves in the way we show up in life, right?
Right.
And I mean, it's possible this could all be wrong. It's possible that all these great thinkers that have said this is a good idea, they're all totally confused and don't know what they're doing. Because a lot, you know, they don't know what they're talking about. Just live blindly,
Right.
live by whims and impulse, right?
Well, try it and see for yourself.
Yeah. Test and realize what is true, right?
Yeah.
So much for theory and speculation. Just use truth through experience and see what actually happens. And I would say, you know, that would be at the end of the day, one of the key things to do moving forward. Okay. Awesome. I thought you did a great job with the discussion on the examens, and which is all about reflect, act, reflect, just as a process for living. Awesome job. And thank you for, you know, being so willing to share your time to be here for this call so that this conversation can be shared with many other people who might benefit from it as our gift of love and wisdom to other people who we may not know or meet that might be able to in some way gain some benefit from this conversation.
Oh, for sure. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, let's do go team on 3. You ready?
I'm ready.
1, 2, 3. Go team.
Go team. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Bye.
See ya.